In cocoa, when we have an afternoon session like that, usually we like to start with a song, then we dance to it. But because of time, we'll skip. Okay, just going to quickly take you through some of the opportunities that exist in the cocoa sector. And to be able to appreciate that, you have to understand the cocoa sector, what we do. So you understand the opportunity that exists in the cocoa sector. So quickly, Cocoa Board is the government agency that has the sole responsibility for cocoa in this country, and is responsible and it facilitates the production, processing, and marketing of good quality cocoa and coffee as well. Cocoa Board, through its divisions, undertake research, and then the production, extension, quality control, and then the internal and external marketing as well. And also facilitates the processing of cocoa beans in Ghana. There's always this saying that cocoa is Ghana, Ghana is cocoa. And cocoa has been with us for decades, and even over a century. And over this time, thousands of households are engaged in cocoa directly and indirectly. And for that reason, it's played a pivotal role in our rural development agenda. It's also a primary source of income for most people in the communities, and also a major source of income for government and a major source of foreign exchange. First opportunity. Africa produces about 3/4 of the world cocoa, but consumes under 5%. First opportunity. When we talk about cocoa, we always talk about Ghana Cocoa Board. But cocoa is a private sector driven industry. Cocoa Board doesn't own any farm. Cocoa Board doesn't own any factory. Cocoa Board is just a facilitator of all these places. Farms are owned by individuals. Factories are owned by individuals. Trucks for hauling are all by individuals. Now, this is a quick picture of the cocoa sector. It's broken down into two sectors, the pre-harvest sector and the post-harvest sector. The pre-harvest sector is where the actual production of cocoa beans takes place. And then the post-harvest sector is after the beans have been harvested, what happens to it? So for Cocoa Board, we help the farmers produce cocoa beans. And to do that, we start first of all with the breeding or coming up of very good quality planting material. So we have the Cocoa Research Institute of Ghana based at New Tafo that does that activity. When they are done and they have come up with a variety, the seed production unit takes it up and multiplies it and then gives it to farmers for free. So anybody who wants to go into cocoa farming, you get the seedling planting material for free. The same thing done with coffee. Cocoa Research comes up with the planting material and the seed production unit multiplies the coffee. Then the extension unit, or what we call the Cocoa Health and Extension Division, provides the support to the farmers on farm to make sure that you adhere to the best cultural practice on the farm. Thereafter, when the cocoa is harvested, we have the post-harvest sector. The license buying companies who are private sector actors take the cocoa from the farmers and deliver same to Cocoa Board through the cocoa marketing company. Now, the quality control company is there to assure that the quality is not jeopardized. Now, Ghana, we are proud to say that we produce the best quality cocoa in the world. And any cocoa anywhere in this world is graded based on Ghana's cocoa. Secondly, any chocolate product globally, any good quality chocolate product contains cocoa from Ghana. It's a must. is a must because of our quality. So we are proud of that. Now, Cocoa Board, which is the government, our role is to create an enabling environment for all these things to happen. All these things to happen. Now, this is a picture of how all the industry actors interact. So we have government and Cocoa Board sitting on top, and then placed through the financial institutions to local processors, to hauliers, to licensed buying companies, to farmers, and then you have a number of NGOs too who are out there playing their role. And then you have the external buyers. So this gives a picture of how all players in the sector interact. Now you realize, apart from Cocoa Board, everybody else is a private sector participant. We have a number of strengths, and that's why we have very good cocoa in Ghana. First of all, it's our weather. Cocoa is not indigenous to this part of the world. It's indigenous to Latin America. But because of the favorable weather we have in West Africa has taken up and is the number one producer of cocoa, producing about 3/4 of the world's produce. Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire are number one and number two, doing about 2/3 of the global output. Besides that, we have good quality labor in both of skilled and unskilled labor. We ensure good cultural practices. We have very good support from government through Ghana Cocoa Board. And our cocoa, because we ensure that we do the cultural practice properly, especially our fermentation and our drying, gives us a distinct flavor, good quality cocoa. Several market opportunities exist for our cocoa, and as I mentioned, every cocoa in this world, chocolate in this world, that is good quality chocolate, number one quality, has Ghana cocoa in it. So we have a very good market for our cocoa. And our farmers are dedicated and always ready to continue farming. The only problem is that our farmers are aging. The average age for farmers now, cocoa farmers, is about 55 years. So we need young blood to come in. Several opportunities exist, and this is where we have to take advantage of. Starting from the bottom, the African Free Trade area is now a huge market for us to take advantage of. It's the biggest free trade area in the world, and with 1.7 million people, a huge market, consuming less than 4%, 5% of the cocoa output. We have a lot of work to do. Switzerland, which doesn't produce cocoa, consumes about 12 kilos per head of cocoa products. And here we do about 0.5%. Even here we are doing better than most African countries at our 0.5. So we have a lot of work to do. And I told a group of people that until we can put chocolate in the hands of somebody who has 2 cities in the rural area and for the person to be smiling, we have a lot of work to do. So we should all work towards that. So these are the list of some of the opportunities that exist in the cocoa sector that we can take advantage of and do a lot of things. Now this tells us who the players in the chain is, like I showed earlier, but we start from the production. At the production level, we have producers, all are the farmers, and supported by the input suppliers. Input suppliers include suppliers of seedlings or planting material, and then all other inputs like agrochemicals, fertilizer, farm implements, all of them fit in there. Then the internal marketers, the licensed buying companies who pick the beans when it's been done. It goes to the external marketers, the quality control people are in between there. Then you have the trade and logistics who move the cocoa around the world. And then they end up at the primary processing level where the cocoa is transformed into cocoa liquor, butter, or cake. Then it goes to manufacturing where we come up with chocolate and other confectionaries. It's used in the cosmetics and then also in the pharmaceuticals. And areas are growing and more things are being done. And then it ends up at the shelves and in our homes as retail, at the retail end. So this is what goes on. And as you go from producers to the retailers, value is added, there's more money being made. Now, to better understand the opportunities that exist, I just want to quickly take you through the cocoa production cycle. Now, cocoa is grown in the southern belts of Ghana, in almost all the regions except Greater Accra region. All the regions. So wherever we have the rainforest, cocoa is grown. Oti and Volta region produces less than 1% of the Ghana's cocoa output. But in the 1960s, was doing a lot of cocoa. Now they do a lot of coffee in the Volta region. So opportunities still exist for cocoa production there because the climate and everything is still very good. Now these are standard practices that will ensure that you come up with good quality cocoa. First, we use high quality hybrid planting material or seedlings from creek supplied by the seed production unit. You have to ensure that your cocoa has good shade because it's a big requirement. And when you start a cocoa farm, you use temporal shade, which could be in the form of plantain or banana or cocoyam, something that keeps the seedlings from dying at that infant state. And that temporal shade also would earn you some income before the cocoa comes up. Now the shade management is that now you use the economic trees. Now the new policy is come that when you plant a tree, you own the tree. So when you plant the shade trees, when you put a tree like Emre in the soil, in 3 years it's taller than me. Yeah, it's taller than me. And you own the tree. So at the point in time, you can harvest it for yourself. Or you own it. Nobody can come from anywhere and take it away from you. Then we ensure good farm management systems. That is what our extension people ensure. Fertilizer application and crop protection. Cocoa Board ensures that is well done. So Cocoa Board supports with the high-tech program and the mass paying program. Harvesting and post-harvesting practices are quite laborious. So new ideas are wanted to make it less laborious, make it more exciting to harvest and process cocoa. Pruning is an activity where unwanted plants, or when the cocoa tree itself gets too bushy, you need to thin it out. And therefore rehabilitation, very aged trees need to be replaced, or when it's diseased. And in agribusiness, which that's what I did, every tree is a production unit. So if a tree is not producing, is producing below average, you take it out and put a new tree there. You don't leave it there to waste resources. And then you ensure that you keep your records and keep it straight. So these are pictures to show you the current practices that take place. First is the seedling production. Now it's done really by Cocoa Board, but we're encouraging that communities can take it up and have community nurseries. Cocoa Board will give you the planting material in terms of pods. Then you can do the seedlings there and then distribute to the community. Harvesting all is done manual. The pod breaking all is done manual. Quite labor intensive. What can we do to make it easier? Like you see the pictures, it takes a lot of labor and hard work to do this. Now fermentation, we have 3 types of fermentation here. We have the heap fermentation where cocoa is put on the plantain or banana leaves and covered for 3 to 6 days. Fermentation should take you between 6 and 7 days for effective fermentation. If it's small quantities of cocoa, it can be done in a basket, and if it's bigger quantities, you can use the fermentation box. The advantage of the box is that you start from the top box. After 2 days, you roll the cocoa into the second box. Now, as it rolls, it turns. Make sure it turns so that it gets uniform fermentation. Then after another 2 days, it comes down to the last box, and then after 2 or 3 days, you take it out for drying. And traditionally, that's been the system of drying. We put the cocoa in the on mats and in the sun. Now the mats are very well designed for their purpose because they have small holes in there. So all small and unwanted material, as you take turn it around, they fall out. So by the time your cocoa is dry, most of those are discarded, and you have the good quality cocoa beans left on top. Now the second one looks like a greenhouse or a screen house, and that ensures that heat is retained and more effective for drying. This can be a centralized point where somebody can have and let people come in and dry their cocoa, maybe for a fee. The third one is a diagram of another way of drying cocoa, where the cocoa is on a mat, and then when it's sunny, you pull the mat out, and when it's raining or in the night, you just push it back under the hat so that it doesn't get wet. So these are some of the ways of the cocoa, the sector we do. We have the internal marketing, licensed buying companies buy cocoa, bring it up to cocoa board warehouses, and then they are offloaded. The quality control unit or department does a very important job to ensure that all cocoa beans grown here and for export meet the best quality. We ensure that cocoa produced are free from residues from the chemicals that we use, because it's a food product. We ensure that it is free from things like ultratoxin, which causes cancer. Ghana cocoa beans are quality starts from the farmer, and we ensure that the lab too does the oil test to ensure that that is maintained. The warehousing, Cocoa Board has its own warehouse, but rents private warehousing to support what they have, especially when the cocoa is at its peak. And then the last picture is shipment, where cocoa is shipped. Now, some of the interventions that are being done in the sector to modernize the sector, to make it more attractive, is cocoa rehabilitation, where aged farms are being renewed. Farms older than 30 years, the cocoa is being cut and replaced. Diseased trees, especially those affected by the swollen shoot virus disease, are being replaced under a rehabilitation program. We also, to ensure higher level of productivity, because cocoa you can get up to about 2 tons and more per hectare. You have some farmers who are not doing the best practice and getting about 400 kilos. Now we're trying to help them intensify their production. We want to expand our output, but not our area under production. And with that, some of these measures are being done: pruning, artificial pollination, the mass spray, the high tech, extension, intensifying extension, and then irrigation. Irrigation too is being adopted in the cocoa sector. And then for those who know how to develop new technologies, we can have what we call fertigation, where the fertilizer is mixed with the water and then delivered to the tree. This can be computerized and done at specific points in times and in specific quantities. So the IT guys, this is an opportunity for you to come up with concepts to do that. Now, as I mentioned, that the average age of a cocoa farmer is now 55 years. We need the youth in there. Cocoa farming is one business that you have an assured market. Cocoa Board will definitely buy your cocoa beans, so you don't have to worry about who is going to take your cocoa beans. So for the youth, it's an area to get in that you can make some income. Now, to ensure all this goes on well, Cocoa Board is putting in place what we call a database of cocoa resources, so that we know all about our farmers, what they do, how they do it, and that we can help improve upon the practices. The supply chain, we need to make it more efficient. And then the most important thing that is dear to my heart is the downstream sector. Because all that we are doing producing cocoa beans is at the end of the day to have cocoa to consume. So if we don't have a very good downstream sector, we are really not achieved our aim. There are a lot of opportunities there. I'll mention a few of the opportunities in there. Okay, so for farming or production of cocoa beans, you can get into commercial farming. Whether you youth or you are my age, you can still get into cocoa farming. And Cocoa Board is assured to give you the planting material and the needed extension services to ensure that you have a good operation. Also, the input supply area is another area full of opportunities. Like I said, Cocoa Board, you need fertilizer, you need agrochemicals, and all these are private sector driven. Some of the big companies in there even would need agents to get the products closer to the farmers. Some companies like Dizengoff, Chemical, they would need agents who can take their products closer to the farmers. So they have opportunities out there. Other opportunities are that you can also formulate new chemicals for the sector. That is also an opportunity that exists. Then there's the supply of logistics, like the tarpaulins, the bags, the twine, all are all opportunities that exist for people to supply them to the sector. Now, when I'm talking about cocoa needs them, coffee needs them. They all use the same material. Then the internal marketing is where people can register with Cocoa Board to participate in buying cocoa from the farmers and deliver same to Cocoa Board. It's a commission agency, so you get paid per ton of cocoa that you buy. So for that, you register with Cocoa Board, you get license to do that activity, and the more cocoa you buy, the more revenue that you make. Okay, now let's look at the downstream sector. Now, this is a typical cocoa pod. Now, if you look on the left, we say beans 33%, which means that for pod, the beans is 33%, or the beans, the sweatings together, is 33% of the whole pod. And then the husk is 67% of the pod. Now, what do we do traditionally is that we throw the husk away, leave it on the farm to rot. Then when we come to the 33%, we only collect the beans that are good. We leave the discarded beans are the small, tiny beans that on the mats, when you turn the cocoa, that fall out. Those seem to be of no economic value. We leave that out. Then the sweatings is when you have a fresh cocoa pod. That sweet sour that you taste on the cocoa pod. Aha, that's the sweat. That's what it is. Now, during the fermentation, it breaks down, and then we let it run off. It goes waste. So this is a typical composition of a cocoa pod. Now, what we do is that for the 33%, the discarded beans and the sweatings go to waste. So we have only 30% of the whole component that goes for economic use. Now, out of that, it goes for processing. We get the liquor, the butter, and the cake. Then that moves on into the next stage of manufacturing, where we have chocolate and other confectionaries, the cosmetics, the pharmaceuticals, and many more other products that come out of it. It is the goal of government, or by government policy, to process at least 50% of the cocoa we produce locally. At the moment, we are doing about 32%, between 28 and 32% of the beans. But we have quite a big installed capacity of 449,000 tons. But all the capacity is not being utilized. So there's more room for processing at that level. Now, this picture is when a company was opened at Barcelona, Afrotropic. Now, there is a market in West Africa and across Africa for our produce. So this is the existing companies that we have in Ghana and the products that they are doing. So we have about 10 companies and they are producing all kinds of products. Now, the 70% that goes waste. There is a unit at the Cocoa Research Institute of Ghana at New Tafo, which is called the New Products Unit. And they are responsible for coming up with new products from that discarded or cocoa waste that we throw away. Now they have a number of products that they have come up with. And that is one area that exists as opportunities. Now they provide training for anybody who wants to get into the production of whatever they do. So this is what you have. For the cocoa husk, they have the soft soap, potash salt, animal feed, and then liquid soap. The soft soap normally called alatasabina. Yeah. Now the potash salt is derived when the cocoa pod is incinerated. or bent, that ash that comes out is what is used in making the soaps. And that is, for some people, they'll just rather buy that and then do their soaps rather than going to collect pods and then burn them. For the discarded beans that I mentioned, that people don't usually utilize, it still contains some butter, cocoa butter. The volumes might not be that much, but it still has some cocoa butter, which that can be extracted. So from that, you can make toilet soaps, you can make lotion, the body lotion. And then, since you've extracted the cocoa butter, you can use it in making chocolate. And then when you separate the butter, what is left, the cake, you grind it, you have your cocoa powder. So all those you can get that from the discarded beans. Then the last is the sweatings. When you collect the sweatings at the fresh level point, it can be used in making the soft drink because it's fresh. But when it ferments, then it can do all the others. The alcohol, the vinegar, the pectin. Now the pectin is used in making the jam and the marmalade. So for all these, if you're interested, Cocoa Research will train you how to go about doing them. Now another area that is growing is the artisan chocolates, where people buy the industrial chocolate or the curvature and then would come up with their own recipes and make their chocolates in their own molds. A number of companies have sprung out of that. You have DecoCraft, you have 57, you have Chocolave. A number of them have come up, and that's what they do. Now, the cocoa processing company in Tema provides training for artisan chocolate makers. So they take you through all the process, and then when you're finished, if you need the ware to do them, they will help you get them. Most of the ware are even available on the internet that you can just buy. And then you can be doing your chocolate at home. It's not a very difficult process. If you go to YouTube, they can even teach you how to do them. Now, for the bigger cocoa processing companies that exist locally, a lot of them are foreign owned. But one thing that they do is to source a lot of the logistics locally, especially their packaging material, because when they do the butter or the liquor, it goes in boxes. They like to source their boxes locally. And then when they do the cake, they put it in paper bags. They like to source them locally. They also source other services like catering for their staff, consultancy services for small studies that they would like to do. They use local engineers to maintain and manage their machines. And then for their exports too, they use some freight forwarders. And they have many more opportunities that they offer, and that they are totally reserved for Ghanaians that they do provide. So to sum up, the cocoa sector is a vibrant area of investment and entrepreneurial opportunities, from production of cocoa beans up to when a product lands on the shelf and all the related support that goes with it. Most of what I'm saying, I mentioned cocoa, but same exists for coffee. Same exists for coffee. Cocoa Board provides seedlings for coffee, and if you want to know more about the coffee, you can talk to me later on, and I can take you through the coffee. Now, this is just a summary of all that I said on one sheet. Thank you very much.